Okay, sorry. Um, yeah, it would be too much for me to be part of one of these boards if I was required to do a ride along. Again, that's just my feelings on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Cameron. Would anyone care to respond or have any feedback? If not, we're going to go ahead and.
Corinne, sorry, Commissioner Casey.
Oh, I didn't see it. Okay.
That's okay.
Something is happening with my screen on my end too.
I just wanted to second Commissioner Cameron. He sort of read my mind on that feedback. I think it would be fantastic to have a ride along as an explicit option for people who are serving on the board, and not necessarily even just as training, but as something that they can continue to sort of refresh their experience with if they decide to. But I do think that for some people, it might be a traumatic experience that would either deter them from applying to the board in the first place or be not necessarily good for their mental health if they did end up applying for the board.
Thank you, Commissioner Casey. Any more comments or feedback to Commissioner Casey and Cameron's comments or concerns? Any point of clarity? Okay. Moving right along, we're going to go into section E, terms and removal of oversight board members. Okay. Co-Chair Obi.
I'm happy to take this, Obi.
Okay.
Oh, thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
E1 members served staggered multi-year terms, identified in San Diego, New York, and San Diego City, San Diego County, New York, and Denver. In the city of San Diego, members served 2-year terms with terms staggered. So 11 or 12 of the 23 members' terms expire at a time. In San Diego County, members serve 3-year terms. In New York, members serve 3-year terms.
You can proceed to E2, and then we'll take discussion after that.
Okay. Members may apply for renewal up to a total maximum length of service. Renewal applications are evaluated and considered by appointing authority. In the city of San Diego, members may serve up to 8 years and then apply again after 2 years. In San Diego County, board members may renew one time for an additional 3 years. In Denver, members may apply for another term and are considered by the nomination committee.
Thank you. Do we have any comments, feedback, questions, or points of clarity for this section? Okay, seeing that there are none, we can move forward.
The oversight body, E3, the oversight body has defined criteria for automatic member removal. Attendance, membership activity, a predetermined number of unexcused absences seen in Denver, San Diego City, 2 consecutive counties, San Diego 3 consecutive. Unmet minimum participation or workload requirement in activity in board activities, including subcommittee work. And then excused absences can be unforeseen event, health reasons, out of town, conflict of interest seen in San Diego City. And then administrative, currently incarcerated and unable to serve, financial or personal conflict of interest seen in San Diego City, death, resignation, no longer living in San Diego County, failing to complete training, also seen in San Diego County, and then ethical and policy violations, unethical conduct, misuse of position or documents, violation of confidentiality, seen in City of San Diego.
Thank you. We can go on to E4. Staff?
Sorry, was it okay to go on?
Yes.
Okay.
So E4, the oversight body has defined authority and criteria for discretionary removal or referral to the appointing authority for removal. Seen in San Diego City, vote by board members, removal recommendations forwarded to City Council for consideration. And defense allowed. Also seen in San Diego County, the council board chair notifies Board of Supervisors who can remove members at any time.
Thank you, Commissioner Tersa. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. I apologize if I'm not. Do we have any comments, discussions, questions, or need point of clarification for these sections? Seeing that there are no hands raised, we're going to proceed forward. In section E5.
Members, E5, members whose terms have expired continue to serve until their replacement is appointed. In San Diego City, members can serve until the next person is appointed. In San Diego County, members can continue in seat until replacement is appointed.
Great, thank you. Before we move forward into section M, board compensation, want to make sure that we don't have any more questions, comments, feedback, or need point of clarification for section E at all. For everything in there, making sure. Seeing that there are no hands raised, we're going to proceed to section M, board compensation. Who would like to take that? Co-chair Obi or co-chair Tirsa?
Sure, I can start again.
Okay, thank you.
So for M1, community members serving on the oversight board are compensated for their time and work. We'll read through all of these from New York, Chicago, LA County, and Philly. New York, members of the oversight body are compensated per term. Some members decide to decline compensation and work pro bono. In Chicago, oversight board members are provided with a $12,000 annual stipend. The chair is provided a $15,000 annual stipend. In Los Angeles County, oversight board members receive a $5,000 annual stipend. In Philadelphia, the Citizen Review Board, which has been authorized but has yet to be convened for the first time, will have members who receive a small stipend for their work. And in Denver, compensation is limited to $1,200 per year, and members are also reimbursed for expenses. There is a counterexample in Washington, D.C., in which in D.C., oversight board body members are not compensated.
All right, thank you, Co-Chair Obi. So we would like to open this up for discussion among the commissioners at this moment. Do we have any comments, feedback, questions, or need any type of point of clarification for section M1 on compensation? Okay, Commissioner Cameron.
Hi, I just wanted to say that the Chicago example with that has their highest annual stipend makes a whole lot of sense to me, but also the New York's people who were the declining compensation working pro bono. The people are going to join these boards for all types of different reasons, and some people I think will definitely be able to work pro bono, and other people will only be able to do it if there's compensation I like having that option, and having it written in so people can, I mean, I'm assuming all of them could say, I want to work pro bono, but it's nice to have that in there as a suggestion, like, hey, we might be budget strapped, so it'd be nice to be able to, use that money appropriately.
Thank you, Commissioner Cameron. Commissioner Angie?
Thank you, Commissioner Cameron, for your comments. As somebody that previously worked for the city of Portland and has worked on some different committees and commissions, I worry with $12,000 or $15,000 stipend. I'm not saying that I'm completely against it. It just worries me for perception reasons, to be quite honest. So I don't know. That is, I agree. It is what, we all know how hard this work is. And it's grueling and it takes a lot, and we all stay on this because we have a passion for it. When this becomes a paid position almost, that worries me, for the perception, but also for people's motivations for being on it. Not that I don't want to give people that need, yeah, I understand that members do deserve to be paid more than a very small stipend, but I think we really need to think about this from a critical lens if we are going to include something like this. Thank you.
Okay, any more comments? Questions? Discussion? Let's see here. Co-chair Tirsa?
I wonder if ultimately the amount, if we do decide to go with this stipend, if that amount will determine on what, after the budget is laid out for staff and the payment of staff and mediators and all the other people that will be that are supposed to be compensated, if then we can look at what the remaining budget will be, and then based on the number of board members, if we can determine then what the annual stipend could look like if we do decide to include a stipend.
Thank you. Any more comments or any added value to this discussion at this moment? Okay, seeing that there are no hands raised, we're going to go ahead and proceed to section M2.
Yes, M2, and I think this plays along a lot with M1. So glad we had a good discussion there. But M2, community members serving on the oversight board are reimbursed for any expenses they incur as part of their public service. Identifying San Diego, both city and county. In the city, the board is reimbursed for authorized, reasonable, and necessary expenses. And in the county, the board is also reimbursed for expenses incurred as part of public service.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Before we proceed into section N, internal structure, want to make a last call for any comments or feedback, questions? Okay, Commissioner Obi, Co-Chair Obi, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just looking the QA again for one of the relevant things. This was mentioned in our by one of our subcommittee members, Sophia, and mentioned in the last co-meeting, but about compensation per case. I think we will hopefully in the next coming week or so look at that idea. It's also a bit tricky, and yeah, I don't want to speak too much on it now because I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's going to be a bit tricky, kind of what Commissioner Angie was alluding to, but a per case basis versus an annual stipend. I'm also probably able to look at like, is it a full pot of a stipend that you, depending on the hours that you do, get minimized or maximized? Like if you only show up 1%, sorry, 50% of the time, you only get 50% of the stipend. I think those are sort of questions we'll have to revolve around. But thanks.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Okay, we're gonna move along to section N, internal structure.
I can take that. Okay, N1, the oversight body is able to set both its bylaws and its other internal processes within broad parameters established in law, identified in San Diego City and San Diego County. In the city of San Diego, the Commission on Police Practices is able to set its own internal processes. The CPP can amend bylaws with support from a 2/3 majority of its membership, and the internal processes such as rules of order, administrative rules, and operational and standing rules by majority. Commissioners can submit proposals 10 days before a meeting to modify the rules. In San Diego County, the board may adopt its working rules by majority vote and must review them every 4 years. And then a counter example in San Diego County. In San Diego County, the County Board of Supervisors must approve the oversight body's working rules.
Thank you. Do we have any comments, any questions, or need any point of clarification for section N1? Co-Chair Obi.
Yeah, just doubling down on the counterexample. You know, I think in this charter for the new board is that it should remain independent from the government, you know, as independent as possible from oversight in its own bylaws and its functioning. So yeah, definitely we will. I think I would stand by that being a counterexample and doing the best to like not have too many layers of like a overarching government looking over this independent board.
Thank you, Commissioner Obi. Do we have anyone else that would like to add their comment, ask a question, or have any feedback? Staff? Oh.
Yeah, thank you. There have been a couple of places in previous conversations where it's been mentioned that this is something that could be defined by the Police Accountability Commission, or this is something that could be defined in the Oversight Board's bylaws. In order for that to be the case, this would need to be definitively stated in code as opposed to left sort of implicit. And so just wanted to flag that as from the perspective of the PAC's time getting into the details of some of these things, some of those things that the Police Accountability Commission may want to be deferential to the Oversight Board to create would require them being able to set their own bylaws. So if that is the preference of the membership of this group, then stating this definitively would be a necessity to achieving that. Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks, staff. Commissioner Co-Chair Obi, you have something else you would like to add? Oh.
No,
yeah.
about that.
Okay. All righty. We're gonna move right along into section N2, quorum.
The oversight body may meet and make decisions when a majority of seated members are present, subject to a minimum threshold defined by law. Identified in San Diego City and San Diego County. In the city of San Diego, there are 23 positions on the oversight body, but quorum is a majority of the seats which are filled. However, quorum can never fall below 7, meaning that even if there are fewer than 13 positions filled, 7 members must be present for the oversight body to meet. In San Diego County, quorum is set to a majority of seated members. To ensure enough participation in each decision, votes require the support of a majority of seated members, regardless of how many attended a particular meeting.
Thank you, Co-Chair Tirsa. Do we have any comments, feedback, questions on quorum? Staff?
Yeah, just wanted to mention, this is similar to something that had been discussed for for a different advisory group than the Community Police Oversight Board. And in that conversation, the city attorney's office flagged that this might have a legal concern under Oregon state law. So just wanted to mention that that's an outstanding issue that either the city attorney's office or eventually the PAC's independent legal counsel could help answer and help navigate. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Do we have any other commissioners that have anything they would like to add, questions, or need point of clarification? Okay, seeing that there's none, we're going to move on to the next section, N3
The
and
oversight
N4. Go ahead, do both. Yes.
N3, the oversight body may establish and define its own officer positions from among its voting membership. N4, the oversight body may establish and define its own committees or subcommittees which address different aspects of the oversight body's work.
Thank you. Do we have any additions to N3, N4, comments, discussion? Co-Chair Obi.
Yeah, just reiterating that both N3 and N4 we kind of previously discussed when talking about the size of the board in general, and like, you know, different subcommittees with different parts of work to lower burnout, make things more efficient, get more done in a smaller amount of time. That'll be important to look at later, but also, you know, flagging what staff just said, making sure that it abides by whatever Portland or Oregon state laws in regards to quorum and making true decisions. Thanks.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Staff?
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify, no legal concern was raised for any of this. The specific thing in the last item was about the seated members part, which wouldn't relate to any of this. But while we're on the subject, the ability to set its bylaws also would include some of the same items as 3 and 4 as well. That can be a single item.
Thank you, staff. So,
Sorry, this is the end of the document, so I'll go to the different document when we're done discussing. Sorry.
thank you. So before we go into public comments, do we have any more discussion regarding section N from the committee? Okay, seeing that there are none, we will now take open public comment on the issues the subcommittee has discussed this evening. On committee members can also tell their story about policing, police accountability. The subcommittees now allow the members of the public to give public comment for up to 3 minutes in length. Please raise your hand in Zoom if you would like to speak. Okay, I see 3 hands raised. We're going to start with Yumi.
Hi, everyone. Just a couple of comments here. Yumi Delgado, CRC Vice Chair. A couple of things that I noticed in tonight's discussion that I would maybe just sort of highlight or try and affirm for y'all. I think if I were to give my opinion on both the size of this body and the size of any sort of stipend or compensation, I would urge you to avoid a small board or small stipends and also a large board or large stipends. So I think, a body of 20 or 30 people becomes very difficult for the public to vet or to understand. I also think that can pose some challenges around recruitment to get people to do these jobs year in and year out, especially, and this is a thing that I'm not sure I've heard a decision on, but especially given that most current city bodies require you not to serve on any other bodies. So if you're going to ask 20 or 30 or 40 people to do this, they have to decide that for however long their term is, they are foregoing any other involvement in public life. So if that becomes a rule, you really have to consider what your talent pool is going to be for that. By the same token, I think an overly large stipend, as Angie mentioned, can really raise some questions about people's motives for doing this. And also that becomes a point of contention with people who are critical of an oversight body. I also think that there can be some danger for the same reasons in allowing people to elect not to take their stipend. I mean, they can always donate it or do something else, but I think there can become some economic virtue signaling, for lack of a better term, if one person says, well, I've foregone my stipend and you haven't. So I think those are some things to be careful of. That being said, $500 or something for doing a year's worth of work definitely seems like a small amount. As Dan mentioned in the Q&A, I think there is there's some benefit to following how the state of Oregon does it for board service, which is, I think, you're often paid on a half day or daily basis. Two other quick notes here. I think it would be wise for this body to set some guide rails for role setting and case assignment and the future body writing its bylaws, just because you don't know what that membership is going to look like 5-10 years down the road. And it's important to make sure that there's been a thoughtful deliberative process so that someone can't potentially really reduce how effective this body is down the road. I also think that can pertain to case assignment. There should be some guardrails around that to make sure that cases are being assigned fairly and that there's not sort of concerns, oh, my case has been assigned to a different body.
Thank you, Yumi. That is time.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Debbie?
Hi, Debbie Iona. I just wanted to say that I really like the idea of having alternates for our board, and I was kind of impressed when I saw that the charter committees were, when they selected their panels, they also selected the alternates, and they're requiring, at least on the salary commission, that they participate, but they can't vote. And that way you have people who are involved on standby in case anybody resigns. And I think that's a good practice for us to incorporate it into our system. Also, in the last phase, we talked about having panels of 5 to hear evidentiary hearings and 7 if it's more serious cases. And so knowing that we don't want people to have to go to a whole lot of meetings in a month, we do need to have a board that's big enough to accommodate those panels of 5 for all the evidentiary hearings and appeal hearings that will be coming their way. Also think it's really important to build in reimbursement into this system. I think people, if you're a volunteer on one of these boards, you might have childcare expenses. Maybe you don't have time to cook dinner that night, so you want to get takeout food, transportation, parking, all those kinds of things. I think you should be able to submit receipts and get reimbursed for all of that. And on the compensation question, I was really persuaded and already kind of had this feeling that Mr. Delgado talked about at a recent meeting about how the public expects this board to be a community board, not a board made up of city employees. And so we want to make sure to compensate, any compensation that we provide needs to not cross the line into making them city employees. So those are my comments. Thank you very much. You guys are doing a great job and I appreciate you.
Thank you, Debbie. Dan?
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? Good. All right. So this is Dan Handelman. I'm a commissioner, and I use he, him pronouns. And I really appreciated our ability to work on the two subcommittees together last time. We have a saying at Portland Cop Watch, of which I'm also a member, that we're not going to go on a ride-along until the police spend mandatory 24 hours on the streets living as a houseless person without any ID or any cell phone or anything, so they know what it's like. I really appreciated Commissioner Brown's relating his experiences and being intimidated by the ride-along, because I agree that it shouldn't be mandatory. I was a little confused by tonight's process, because in the past, what we've done is read through these paragraphs, and then we were asked, does everybody think that's something that we want to include? And then there would be some finger twinkling, but it just sort of, so I'm hoping that this means that everybody was okay with everything that got written in the record, but there were a lot of kind of conflicting ideas. So I'm not sure what the next steps will be, but it'd be interesting to watch as it moves forward. Interestingly, when you went over the terms, it said in Denver you can go to another term, but it didn't say how long the term was. And I tried to check the previous research and I couldn't find what that answer was, how long those are. But it does say in the charter that the city code will define how long terms are. So that's something we commissioners have to decide. It might be worthwhile, instead of having a per case thing, to maybe, as somebody said, a per diem, or if it is per case, consider like deadly force cases are going to be a lot more complicated. Maybe consider that. I have some background on the state law and quorum issue, but just very briefly, the Citizen Review Committee has 11 members and their quorum is 5. So it's not a majority of the members. So the city's allowed to set a quorum however it wants, as long as they write that down. And I got a case that I'll show you what that means. Yeah, and I appreciated Mr. Delgado's discussion about making sure there are guardrails in, so that in the future, if the board is not made up of people who share the enthusiasm and passion of our commission, that the board has to function the way that we are envisioning it. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to spending time with you all again.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, public, for your comments this evening. Mr. Yumi, Debbie, and Dan, appreciate your participation today. So now we will move on to our next steps, the 4th item on our agenda, and I will turn it over to staff.
Yes, thank you. So the next meeting of this subcommittee will be at earliest the 20th. It may be later than that. It's somewhere between the 20th and 28th of the month of March. So there's at least 11 days between these meetings, and that gives time for folks, members of the subcommittee, to think about this content area and potentially come up with, how the ideas that were discussed today might eventually look in some form of text, and potentially as an interim step towards that, helping to collect and collate ideas together in the eventual categorization of the document, or some categories that might mirror that eventual document. This is the first standalone meeting of the subcommittee. It should have at least 3, there'll be at least 3 more meetings beyond this one of the subcommittee. So it is not necessarily required that there be a full working draft by next meeting, but it can't hurt to get started on all of that from a timing perspective to meet the very aggressive deadlines of the overall commission. So in looking at the document that members started with today, there is, in the agenda and scope document of the full commission, this is the content area number 1 and 2 here, which have been assigned to the subcommittee. And in the chat, there's some overlap, as you may see. In the chat, there are sort of a condensed version where things are combined for that. So if it's possible, if co-chairs would like to ask members if there are issue areas they'd like to focus on, that could be a good opportunity to use this 11-day period for that. Not necessarily to develop text, but to report back on what they found and kind of collated. Is that an accurate reflection of how co-chairs would like to use this time?
Yeah, I haven't realized you asked me a direct question. Yes, that's exactly, being a co-chair last time, this is kind of the exact time frame of what we did. After our first solo meeting, we kind of broke into some small groups and got some more work done from there. I think it's been very helpful to have this previous meeting and now this meeting to kind of get our feet moving. I think if we want to split up, or people have specific areas that are calling to them or that they're really interested in, that'd be great. And then we can kind of split into groups, or like even do a couple one solo, and then bring our ideas together and discuss them at the next meeting. And then we can really start forming, a document now, but really start forming a document the next meeting, and definitely abide by the timeline to finish the following meeting or the meeting afterwards.
Yeah, so in order to have the ability to have this be more a partner activity rather than a solo activity, then each of the members here would probably need to sign up for 2 or 3 of these, and they don't have to be the same. You could work with one person on item 2 and another person on item 6. If folks want to, if subcommittee members would like to put into the chat what they're interested in, then we can send this out after the fact, and you can put either the numbers or the items by name, and just kind of volunteer for that. And the rough deadline would be 8 or 9 days from today at minimum. Ideally be 2 days before the next subcommittee meeting, when whatever you've set, that way can be recirculated to your colleagues for a couple days at least.
Thank you, staff, and thank you, Co-Chair Obi, for that update and clarification. So moving right along into the conclusion part of the agenda.
Actually, I'm so sorry, if you could just wait a minute to let them kind of sign up, then I can put it in back out there for folks to see. And if anyone has any questions on that, that would also work at this point. Anyone have any questions before we move on? Okay,
Is there only one member that's absent today? Is that what it is?
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Sophie is it Sophia Glenn?
So yeah, Sophia is on the
Yeah.
attendees. She's right there right now. We can, I don't know, still.
Yeah, we can assign her. We can, yeah.
Promote her.
And I know, okay, thanks. Everybody here has done it. So you can, please feel free to move on. Sorry about that interruption.
So have we moved Sophia into the room? I think her hand was raised. She had something to say.
No, I was actually gonna say I'm sick, so I can't say much.
Okay. Well, please take care and get well soon. Thank you. Okay. This is the time for facilitators, co-chairs, and staff to summarize any items already brought up today which didn't fit into today's agenda. We'll recap those items here and use them in developing future agendas. We won't be using this time to add new items not previously mentioned or to discuss any items, but we will use this list to develop future agendas so that these items can be addressed. This is the guarding plot. Victoria, do you have anything you would like to add?
I think I have some notes, but I will let the co-chairs to go first.
Okay, co-chairs, co-chair Obi.
Sure, thank you. No, just future looking, I'm glad the main future looking thing that we had discussed before was making sure that we all get in these little groups and do our research over this longer break so that we can kind of be efficient on our next meeting. So I don't have much to add here. Thank you.
Co-Chair Tirsa, do you have anything you would like to add at this moment?
I do not.
Any fellow commissioners, do you have anything you would like to add to the garden plot? Okay,
And I have something, but I don't know if it's, I take some notes, but is the relationship between the board and the staff and how to empower the board. And the offering virtual options for meetings for people cannot meet in person. That's the only two that I believe was not part of what these commissioners were reviewing. But staff may have something too.
Nothing additional to that. I think there's a couple things with relation to that to look into, that connection point, which is a little bit unique to this. Unlike any other part of the city, the oversight board will actually be hiring the directors. So there's some detail there to look into that, just to deepen that point. Thank you, Facilitator Victoria.
thank you, Victoria and staff. Do you have anything that you would like to add to the garden plot at this time?
No, thanks.
Okay, this was a great meeting. Appreciate everyone who participated today and taking the time out to come in to this meeting space. As a reminder, you can now submit advanced public comment to the Police Accountability Commission via web form, voicemail, or postal mail. Thank you all of the members who attended today's meeting and for your contributions today. Thank you also to the interpreters. Finally, thank you to the members of the community for attending and contributing your thoughts and questions. If you're not already signed up for email updates, please also sign up and receive updates from the PAC. The next meeting of the subcommittee on board membership will be later this month, and the exact date will be announced next week. It is now 8:56 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
You, bye all.